I love when I have super female entrepreneurs. This is Lesley Eccles, and she is the founder of Relish. And before that, talk about a transition, was the co-founder of FanDuel. So we're going to talk about two different fantasy sports here, one dating and one actual fantasy sports. But as a chancellor of Junior Achievement University, it's amazing because we have 100 million alumni. It's a huge organization for entrepreneurs 15 to 25. More women now. When I started there, it was predominantly young men. Now there's more women than men because of innovators like you that have given confidence to like my teenage daughters that, hey, this is an equal field. And in some respects, I think it's not equal anymore because you have a superior intellect to most men like me. And the way that you look at things really can change the world. Let's start with something that's weird. Here you're a woman entrepreneur from Scotland and you end up co-founding FanDuel.
Yeah.
How do we connect the dots backwards to get you there?
Yeah, that funny story. It was 2007 and I've always said there's never a great time to start a business. Never.
Which is opposite of most people. They're like, there's always a great time
yeah,
to start
no, there's never a good time. You just have to do it.
Good.
And 2007, I had a newborn baby, a toddler, a huge mortgage. We just moved from London up to Edinburgh. And my husband said he was unhappy in his job. I was still on maternity leave. And he wanted to start a company.
What was your job at the time that you were?
I was a management consultant before
Okay,
FanDuel.
perfect. Traditional job.
So, not the best time to start a company in anyone's book.
Right.
But I knew at that point, if we didn't do it then, we would always look back with regrets. And I never want to do that in my life. And I never want my husband to look back and say, you didn't let me do that. So I said, okay, let's do it. And he nearly fell off his chair. But we did it. And the first company that we started was actually a prediction market, nothing to do with fantasy sports.
Yeah.
And after about a year, we realized that this was just going to be impossible to monetize in any way. Super popular, difficult to monetize.
Can I stop you there? Because this is a huge point. I do a lot of executive coaching, and it amazes me with entrepreneurs. Do you feel that was something in retrospect you should have thought of when you were thinking of the idea of how am I going to monetize this? Because I see so many entrepreneurs don't do that, and me being one when I was young. Is that something you thought about when you started, like, we'll figure out how to monetize it?
Yeah, we did think about it, but we were wrong.
Oh, okay.
We had all these
It's
ideas of how we could
though.
monetize it,
Yeah.
but we were wrong.
Yeah.
And we very quickly, after about a year, we decided, you know what, we're going to have to pivot into something else. We'd already raised about $1 million in VC money. And, as soon as you take that money, the clock is ticking and you have to show returns.
How did you deal with the investors when you made the pivot? I'm trying to ask the questions because entrepreneurs sit there and go, I'm stuck because I promised these guys this thing, and now I'm going to tell them this. How did you approach that?
I mean, in hindsight, we could have done it better. At the time, we were like, ta-da, here's our new product. This is what we're going to do. And they're all sitting around the table going, what? Excuse me? Fantasy sports? What are you talking about?
Oh, no.
So, with hindsight, we could have done a better job at sort of managing the expectations around it and taking it a little bit more slowly. But we were very much like, we don't have time to talk about this. We're very excited about the new product. We're just going to get it out there, test it, and see if we can make it work. And the new product was what turned into FanDuel. And it really came about...
What sport was it related to when it started?
We launched it in July, so it was baseball.
It was baseball, okay.
And then we launched football later in the year. But it really came from the idea of there being no innovation in the area in fantasy sports. Everyone was using ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, and had been doing for years. And there were pain points, and there was a way to improve it, but it involved a lot of talking to fantasy sports players because we weren't. There's no secret that I'm not a sports fan. I never have been, and I never will be. I haven't watched a game since I left FanDuel 2 years ago. But I got deeply passionate about fantasy sports because I was so passionate about building this company. I loved the intense experiences that our players had, the way that it just transformed the way that they watch sports. It was very, very exciting. And I loved the impact that it had in terms of it transformed the sports landscape in the whole country. We changed the laws in 22 different states during 2016.
You not only did that, but bridged the gap, I think, for the adaptation of gambling in a responsible way.
Right, yes.
And it really will make a huge difference of sports to bring out from the backyard and put into the front yard. What makes sports really exciting is the polling, the competition of the fans themselves beyond what they see.
Right. Yeah, and all the smack chat around it as well. Like,
of course.
You know, it's...
There's the Scottish in her, as you can see. I have some friends from Scotland I play golf with, and I'm like, I just think they beat me mentally. Not because they play better. It's like what they say. I'm like, what do you mean by that?
They break you down.
Exactly. Anyways, so, you know, in building that, what was the biggest challenge that you faced throughout the entire process, through your exit, with building FanDuel?
The biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge in any startup is the mental challenge of just keep going. Don't give up. Because it's the hardest thing, apart from parenting, it's the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. With FanDuel, we had more than our fair share of ups and downs. You know, any startup will go through periods of we're about to run out of money, we can't make payroll, you know, the traditional startup type of issues that you face. But with us, we had the additional challenges of insane competition, FBI, AGs across the country, threat of jail. Mafia. You know, that's not your sort of run-of-the-mill kind of startup issues that you face, right? No. Yeah. But I think because we had done it the hard way, we were a startup in Scotland, we were all British, none of us were American, we weren't into fantasy sports, we had to learn from scratch. Our first investors were from Scotland, our second investors were from London. You know, we weren't in the Valley, we weren't the cool kids. We found it hard to raise money because of that. And that stood us in good stead for dealing with all the stuff that came later, all the really hard stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it mentally prepared us for, it's not the end of the world if this all falls in a pile and gets shut down, you know, because we'd been through so much, and we'd been through so much as a founding team and a sort of team of employees, that those relationships were so strong and so tight. That was what gave me inspiration to start Relish after I left FanDuel. Those relationships were what kept me sane and kept us all sane and kept us out of therapy as we went through the experience.
Now, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids.
And who's the oldest?
15 is the oldest, 6 is the youngest.
Oh, see, you're almost really understanding how challenging being a parent is compared to anything else, because I have 3 teenage daughters, and I'm thinking in my head, oh yeah, when things are going around me and my employees are like, how are you so calm? I'm like, you see what my house is like.
Right. Yes.
Now, transitioning is exactly where I wanted to go to Relish, which is, you know, people see things as spaces or industry, they would think completely different things, right? Fantasy and dating, although my business mind is thinking, I bet there's a lot of synergies between the two behind what they actually do.
Right.
And so I was curious of, number one, what inspired you to get into that vertical? And 2, what are the similarities and differences, or what gave you the confidence that this would work?
Yeah, okay. So let me tell you a little bit first about what Relish is.
Please.
So, you know, Relish is less about dating and more about, once you've found your person, what happens next? How do you make sure that you have optimized that relationship? You know, I come from a background of, we're going to optimize the product, we're going to optimize the marketing, we're going to optimize the messaging, the brand, all of that stuff. How can I take that and add in technology and come up with a product that will really help you have the best relationship that you can with this particular person? And that's what we built with Relish. It's a customized improvement plan for your relationship with your own coach that you can text anytime to get support and advice as you go along your journey. So every week you get personalized lessons, little activities that you can do either on your own or together. And it's about, I call it active mindfulness. So mindfulness and meditation, great foundation.
Big fan.
But what What about the things that you're saying and the things that you're doing in your day-to-day life? Words can be taken the wrong way. It's about what people hear rather than what you say. So how can we help people, giving people examples and activities that they can test and try different approaches to what's actually going to work with their particular relationship?
It's the Lou Holtz, who's the coach of the old Notre Dame football coach. I know you're not a big football fan, but that was his famous saying, it's not what I say, it's what they hear.
Oh, okay.
You built an entire app off of this. This is great.
There you
Without
go.
even knowing it,
Yes.
you had some energy past life of sports. And this has to be.
It's coming back to haunt me.
Yeah. And so what motivated you though to start a bit? I mean, to me, it's one of the most essential things. In fact, someone today was telling me that I was coaching, that they saw a gift is when they were observing and shadowing me of how I utilize that relationship, and I do what I call a lagniappe, a little bit extra, and that makes an entire difference so that they remember, not only hear what I'm saying, they remember me.
Right.
And sometimes, Gary Vaynerchuk had a great idea the other day that he's sending stuff to 6-year-olds because he knows that if he sends, a sign whatever to a 6-year-old, that he's going to have a client for life.
Right.
Right. That impression. What motivated you to say, I can, once again, you're falling in the same trap. How do you monetize that? I mean, it sounds great.
Yeah. Well,
right? So
it's an annual subscription.
Yep.
It's $100 a year for 2 people. And that includes unlimited coaching advice through text with a trained coach.
Wow.
So I think it's a steal. And we launched last week. Product's been in the App Store for a couple of months now, but we officially launched last
It's
week.
any relationship. So if I'm not getting along with my boss, my wife, my kids, could it be any, or is it specific to intimate relationships?
You pick a relationship, and it really is specific at the moment to intimate relationships. Okay. But you don't have to be married.
But
you don't have to be
business units.
Exactly. You don't have to be male, female. It's non-gender specific. It's definitely not sort of heteronormative. Yeah. We've been very aware that a lot of our users are in all sorts of relationships. There's polyamorous relationships going on. We're.
But you can only have 2 people though.
At the moment, yes.
Okay,
yes.
just checking.
Maybe we'll charge you to add more partners. I don't know.
That's very modern. I love that. I would just like to see it on there just because it's cool. Right? That's good. That's good.
Right.
Very
yeah,
open.
Yeah.
In building that business now, you have a second chance to raise money or build and scale and capitalize. What were some of the lessons that you took with you and said, okay, this time around, we're going to do it this way?
Right.
What were some of those great pieces of advice that you followed yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, over a 10-year period of building FanDuel, I learned so much. Like, I could write books and books and books about it.
MBA day.
But the first thing last summer when I went out to raise money, I literally had a PowerPoint deck of an idea. I had tested a very, very basic product with about 50 friends. And I went to Silicon Valley and I said, I've done FanDuel before. I think there's a great opportunity here. Here's my idea. Will you invest? And everyone loved it. Everyone I spoke to loved it. But my criteria for who I wanted to take money from was different. What I really focused on was I want somebody who not only is excited about the area that the product's in, but really gets the vision and the mission behind the product. I want somebody that really shares my values, and that includes doing the right thing and having integrity. And I also want someone who's founder friendly and really understands how important a founder is in terms of building a company. And one of the things that I did was reach out to the other CEOs in their portfolio companies and say, hey, what's it like working with this investor? What's it like when things are not all up and to the right? What's it like when proverbial hits the fan? How do they behave? Because that's when you know you've got a good investor. I was really delighted that Paul Martino from Bullpen Capital, don't know if you know Paul, he was our first US money into FanDuel. And as soon as I told him about Relish, he was like, I'm in. And I know Paul, I know how he operates, I know how, he's founder friendly. And So he was in, and then Trinity Ventures, Patricia Nakash, same thing. She comes with great recommendations, and that's the important thing.
Also, beyond that philosophy and strategic investor that you were looking for, did you look at the relationship capital of your investors? You know, one of the things that I coach on is, I think is equally important beyond the strategic side of who they can connect you to, board of advisors, other investors, et cetera. Was that part of your strategy as well when you were selecting?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, fantastic. We didn't necessarily have that with FanDuel. We did it the hard way.
Yeah, great.
And I see it as the icing on the cake, right?
And do you think, I believe money is a currency and object of energy that you put into the flow, but it also creates options and opportunities to shop, whether it's on a business or a personal level. I always found that, past successes pave the road even for future opportunities, that it's not just the lessons that I've learned, it's easier to raise money. It's easier to do everything because the doors are opening, because I can say, I co-founded FanDuel. It's like me saying I ran Lee Steinberger, I had the first smartphone in the world.
Right.
It's just easier and easier, and yet you and I both know, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm statistically successful in the next thing that I do.
Yes, yes.
Where do you see the greatest difference from your first time around to the second? I would say I invest in second ventures because 99% of the first ones are really difficult and it gets a lottery ticket. Yeah. But the second time investor or entrepreneur is my favorite. Yeah. Because someone else has paid for their education. Right. Now they're ready to go. You know what I mean? So for you, what's the major difference of the second round?
David, it was night and day. It's night and day. I mean, when we started FanDuel, this is how basic my knowledge was. I didn't know what NFL stood for.
Really?
I'm like, what shape of ball is that?
That's right. That's okay. When I started Instagram, I thought DM, that everyone got their own initials. I thought it was David Meltzer. So I asked my girls, hey, can you MN me? Because they're all M&Ms. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'll DM you. They're like, I'm like, yeah, Dave Meltzer, you me, and Meltzer me back. So I get it. Okay. So
awesome. There was a steep learning curve for you. Yeah. And also for me,
And not being American.
Right. And no background in building a company before. And no connection. So like you said, having not just the knowledge, but also knowing who to go to. Who are the people that you can trust? Who are the people that are good at their speciality? That's an important piece of it as well. So with Relish, I knew exactly which lawyer I wanted to use, which accountant I wanted to use. Just the basics, getting all that in place. Last time maybe took 6 months. This time it's like a couple of phone calls and you're up and running. And you translate that into all the other aspects of your business, and it means that you can just move faster.
Well, I love the fact that you went from one of the most popular things, sports in America, to the most popular thing, which most people don't think about, which is how do I monetize relationships? Right. Because everybody has them. Right. and you're going to cover the whole area. So you really learned a lesson about market size and the emotional aspect of, people buy on emotion for logical reasons, which is what FanDuel was all about. Yes. But even more importantly, I think why I relish, no pun intended, because I think it's just an extraordinary business. And like you said, the ROI, when you said to me, I think it's a really great value for $100. Right. Because for me, the most important thing in my life is my relationship with my wife. Right. And it's successful and happy and everything. If my wife isn't happy, with me especially, everything, my perspective shifts in an extraordinary amount, and I can't tell you how many millions of dollars I would lose for every day she's not happy with me. And so I want people to realize the ROI when you check out Relish, and just an extraordinary entrepreneur, Lesley Eccles. I did not realize how little you knew about sports. The NFL story is going to literally stick. You'll hear it 10 times on my Instagram, because I'm going to tell people, don't worry about not knowing about, it's about the money part of how you can monetize something. You don't necessarily, because I ran the first smartphone. I didn't know anything about technology. Right. Like, I have an engineering degree. Right. These engineers would ask me questions about the IOTA browser and all these things. I'm like, okay. It's about like you sitting talking about
Right.
football. You're okay.
I mean, what I did was really understand the people behind, the people, the fans, getting that real deep understanding of their
Emotional
passions
attachment.
and their emotional attachment. That was how I built FanDuel. It wasn't from knowing what shape of ball.
Well,
the
I think
NFL
this says it all. It's $1 billion fantasy world, and I think it's a multi-billion-dollar relationship world. Lesley Eccles, it's a pleasure, CEO of Relish, with Dave Meltzer, Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.